Back here on HQ, Ja Morant returned to the Memphis Grizzlies lineup last night after his one-game suspension for conduct detrimental to the team. The return didn't exactly go as planned. Ja had 18 points, 10 assists, but struggled from the floor, hitting just 5 of 16 shots and committing 5 turnovers in a loss to the Pistons, their third loss in a row, by the way. Now, despite returning to the lineup, doesn't seem like things are all peachy keen in Memphis. Ja had some interesting things to say to reporters. Take a listen.
Do you feel like everything's been resolved?
Yeah. They told y'all that, right?
Well, yeah, but we didn't hear it from you.
Obviously, they can't go and tell y'all something I ain't say.
You feel like you get the same joy right now that we used to see from you?
No.
Let's sort this all out with our NBA writer, Sam Quinn. Ja Morant always giving us something to talk about. Seems like things are falling apart for Ja and the Grizzlies in terms of their relationship. Sam, you wrote an article on CBSSports.com on the top 5 landing spots for him. So let's go through it. Number 5, you have the T-Wolves, which would be interesting if you think about the backcourt with him and Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, it would be a bit of a risk, obviously, when you're talking about a team that's made the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. But the Timberwolves are in a little bit of a transitional stage right now. Mike Conley, presumably at the end of his career. They draft Rob Dillingham to be a long-term replacement. You know, they have Terrence Shannon, who was a good rookie last year as well. I don't think they're headed back to the Western Conference Finals this year. It's probably going to be a year where they take a little bit of a step back unless they take a bold swing. Tim Conley's done plenty of those. The Rudy Gobert trade, the Karl-Anthony Towns trade. I think if you look at Minnesota and the broader Western Conference landscape, they just don't have the firepower to compete with the Oklahoma Cities, the Houstons, you know, the Denvers of the world. This could be a chance for them to buy low on an all-NBA talent. You put him and Anthony Edwards in the same backcourt. I mean, my God, that's the most athletic backcourt in the NBA. Good luck stopping that. They'd be getting to the rim at will. If you're constructing a trade there, you'd probably have to include one of the big men just from a salary matching standpoint. Maybe there's a third team for Rudy Gobert. Maybe Naz Reid would interest Memphis. Could you throw in Rob Dillingham as a high pick with some upside? The Timberwolves don't really have draft picks to offer, but they have a lot of players that they can offer, whether veterans that could get assets from another team or younger guys Memphis might want to use. I think if you're looking for a sleeper, Minnesota stands out.
Okay, let's make our way down the list. At number 4, you have the Toronto Raptors. So what would Ja in Canada look like?
Yeah, it'd be a little bit of a tricky fit because neither Ja or Scotty Barnes are really reliable three-point shooters. That being said, the Raptors are paying the luxury tax for a team that hasn't made the playoffs the last several years, that doesn't really have a clear franchise player. There's not really an obvious direction there. It doesn't really make sense what they're actually trying to accomplish. 3-4, one of those wins comes against Memphis without Ja. They're probably in that lottery play-in mix. If you do trade for Ja, at least then you're giving yourselves a real talent upgrade, somebody that potentially could be the franchise player if he gets, back on the straight and narrow. You're probably building a trade around Emmanuel Quickly, your own expensive point guard who's been a little bit of a disappointment. Toronto does control all of its own first-round picks. They could give up draft capital to Memphis to make this work. For the Grizzlies, look, do you want to take on Quickly? No. But if you can get some draft picks, kind of reset your organization a little bit, get out from under these headaches, it's worth considering.
And you do have, want to mention it here, the Suns at number 3, the Miami Heat at number 2, which would be interesting to see if he fits into that Heat culture. And lastly, number 1, we have the Sacramento Kings here looking to replace De'Aaron Fox. So tell us more about that fit and why the Kings are number 1 on this list.
Yeah, the Kings are kind of on the road to nowhere, right? They keep trying to recreate the Beam team, that 2023 playoff team. Well, when they lose De'Aaron Fox, we've got to go get another star guard. Zach LaVine hasn't really worked out thus far. There's a lot of redundancy there, whether it's Dennis Schroeder, Russell Westbrook. A lot of guards that really need to have the ball in their hand aren't great shooters. Ja is pretty similar in that regard, but he's younger. He's somebody who has all-star upside. Domantas Sabonis at the end of last year comes out and says, we need to get a point guard. Dennis Schroeder, middling, kind of a mid-level guy. Russell Westbrook, he's been floating around the league for the last half-decade. Ja could be your long-term point guard. Do I think it makes sense for this team to be giving up more draft picks, be taking on long-term money? Probably not, but not that much that the Kings do actually makes that much sense. So if they're really committed to trying to remain competitive, this is probably the sort of all-star point guard that they can get. Somebody whose value is lower than you'd think, somebody who's not had a great last few years, and is stylistically pretty similar to Fox, and they're both downhill driver types. So, look, the Kings are kind of in the middle of nowhere. I don't know what their long-term vision is. If they are still fixated on finding that long-term point guard, Ja seems like the kind of guy who would be available and a big enough talent upgrade that you could maybe justify giving up, a first-round pick, maybe a couple.
Sam, we appreciate it. This is a story we're going to keep a close eye on all season long. And by the way, make sure you check out Sam's full article right now on CBSSports.com. Just to quickly recap it, number 5 in terms of landing spots for Ja Morant, the Timberwolves and the Raptors, the Suns, the Heat coming in at number 2, and the Sacramento Kings coming in at number 1. We'll be right back with some breaking trade deadline news on the other side right here on HQ.